When it comes to amusement parks, Virginia focuses more on quality than quantity. While Virginia doesn't have many amusement parks, the two that they have, Kings Dominion and Busch Gardens, are some great amusement parks. In today's video, I'm going to rank all 27 roller coasters that belong to the state of Virginia. Let's dive into this. Before we start this video, I will be only including roller coasters that are currently operating, meaning that there will be no defunct coasters and no roller coasters under construction. While I haven't ridden every single roller coaster in the state of Virginia, I will still be including the ones I haven't ridden. They just might be unfairly rated. And finally, I will be less descriptive for the first 17 roller coasters, as I don't want this video to be over half an hour long. Starting off the list at the number 27 spot, we have Toonbilly at Kings Dominion. There's a reason why I haven't ridden this ride yet at Kings Dominion. I get motion sickness pretty easily, and I'd probably get sick by riding this, which would probably make it an unpleasant experience. This ride is definitely not for me, and that is why it's at the bottom of the list. I would much rather ride a kid's coaster than this vomit rocket. At the number 26 spot, we have Python Pit at Go-Karts Plus in Williamsburg, Virginia. This is a very basic kids coaster, and there's not much to say about it. It has a drop, then a helix, and that's pretty much the entire ride. It at least has multiple laps, but other than that, just a small little kids coaster. At the number 25 spot, we're going back to Kings Dominion for a Great Pumpkin Coaster. Yet again, not much to say about this ride other than the fact it's a basic kids coaster. It forms a short little oval layout, but the only reason why it's up here above Python Pit is that it at least has some decent theming. At the number 24 spot, we have Twist and Shout located at Funland, Fredericksburg. This is your basic SBF Visa spinning coaster that you find all over the US at FECs. Not really much to say, there's no real theming, and it's just a basic ride experience. It does have a little thrill with the spinning, and it doesn't look too bad, so it'd probably be something that I could tolerate. At the number 23 spot, we have Grover's Alpine Express at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. This is a pretty nice kids coaster that has some little force to it and some theming, and I definitely appreciate it for being here at Busch Gardens. Other than that, there's not much to say about this kids coaster other than the fact that it serves its purpose. At the number 22 spot, we have Woodstock Express at Kings Dominion. This is Virginia's oldest operating roller coaster. It actually opened before the park in 1974, and it still rides really well for its age. I think it's very fun, and I always try to do this when visiting Kings Dominion because it is a classic. At the number 21 spot, we have Invader at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. I've never really liked Invader. I wish that Busch Gardens would have invested in a Gravity Group wooden coaster instead, because this is a pretty underwhelming ride. I thought it would at least have some force to it, but it has barely any, and it's just not really worth the line. It always has a long line. The only redeeming about this is that it is tame, so it's great for families. At the number 20 spot, we have Reptilian at Kings Dominion. This is a very interesting roller coaster. It feels more like a slide than a roller coaster, but it is still pretty fun. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this is Kings Dominion's next roller coaster to close, so I would recommend riding it the next time you go to Kings Dominion, because you never know if it will be its last season. At the number 19 spot, we have Mountain Mayhem Fun Coaster at Massanutten Resort. I have actually been to the Massanutten Resort back in February 2025, where I went to the water park, and I did go to the adventure park and saw a banter for this ride. Fortunately, construction didn't even start at that time, and I was really sad, but now it's open, and it's Virginia's first ever mountain coaster. It looks to be a solid ride, and I'm very interested to see how it is. At the number 18 spot, we have Apple Zapple at Kings Dominion. I honestly think Wild Mouse coasters are pretty underrated, and this is a pretty good ride for the park. I am glad that this is the large park model, so it at least has a drop at the beginning, and I think it has a nice color scheme that fits really well within Candy Apple Grove. At the number 17 spot, we have Backlot Stunt Coaster at Kings Dominion. This is a pretty solid family coaster. It pulls some decent forces, but the only problem is that while it is well themed, it no longer fits in its area, or I guess it never really did. I really hope that Kings Dominion at least themes this to like a safari truck styled ride so it doesn't look out of place, because it is a pretty solid ride, and unfortunately the effects never usually work. But please, Kings Dominion, retheme this roller coaster. At the number 16 spot, we have Racer 75 at King's Dominion. This is a pretty fun racing coaster. In my recent experiences at King's Dominion, it has been racing, so that's a good sign. It does have one main airtime moment that if you're sitting in the back row, after the turnaround, you get some pretty good airtime. But other than that, it's not a lot of airtime. I think the best part is really racing, because especially if you're going with your friends, I think it can be really fun. It's not the best roller coaster in the park, but it's not bad in any way, and it serves its purpose as a fun, classic racing coaster. At the number 15 spot, we have Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This ride honestly made me dislike B&M inverts. I don't know, just when I went recently to Busch Gardens Williamsburg to get a ride in Alpengeist, all I remember after the ride was my head hurting really bad. I had a really bad headache, and I thought that I wasn't going to be able to do any more roller coasters. Thankfully, it went away after about an hour. But still, that's not very pleasant. I mean, I can still acknowledge that it's still a fun-ish coaster, but I just don't really like B&M inverts anymore, and it's not a ride for me. At the number 14 spot, we have Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens. Loch Ness Monster is a very good classic roller coaster. It opened all the way back in 1978, and recently in 2024, Busch Gardens refurbished the ride so it looks even better. I think the drop has some really good airtime in the back, and the interlocking loops, the only one of its kind, is a very cool element. I overall think that Loch Ness Monster is a very underrated roller coaster. I also hope this roller coaster stays along for a few more decades because it's very fun. At the number 13 spot, we have Dark Coaster at Busch Gardens. I'm going to be completely honest, this roller coaster is super underrated. While it does have some pretty terrible theming, it actually pulls a lot of forces for a family coaster. I don't know if it's as good as the ones in Europe, but I thought this ride pulled a lot more force than Arctic Rescue at SeaWorld San Diego. And the launches were actually pretty good. Honestly, this was a really good family roller coaster, and I really enjoyed it. At the number 12 spot, we have Grizzly at King's Dominion. Honestly, this ride is one of my favorite wooden roller coasters I've ever ridden. Now, I've never ridden any standout wooden coasters, but this is still really good. Now, before 2023, this ride used to be known as one of the worst roller coasters in the entire world. However, King's Dominion went in and put some gravity group vertically stacked track, and now it's really smooth for a wooden roller coaster. And it actually has some really good airtime. And one of my favorite things about this ride is since its ride's entrance is behind a gift shop, not too many people know where the ride is, so it almost never has a line. Every time I go to King's Dominion, it always has a station wait. Even on Fridays and even on Saturdays, always a station wait, which is why I make sure every time I go to King's Dominion to ride this roller coaster. At the number 11 spot, we have Flight of Fear. Flight of Fear is a very solid roller coaster. It's not great, but it's pretty fun. It has some fun elements to it, and it's nice that King's Dominion has an indoor roller coaster. Now, one thing I do wish about Flight of Fear is that while the theming inside the queue is good, I wish that the theming actually in the ride was better. It feels like just a box, and it's not that dark. This ride is basically like Cedar Fair's Rock and Roller Coaster, and it's kind of fun for that, and at least it has lap bars. Now it's time to move up to the top 10. I'm going to try to be more descriptive with these roller coasters and explain more, but at the number 10 spot, we have Wolf's Revenge at Busch Gardens. Talk about an underrated roller coaster. This ride genuinely surprised me when it opened in 2025. Now, I've done another B&M invert in SeaWorld, which is Phoenix Rising at Busch Gardens, Tampa. And that is nowhere near as good as this ride. This ride actually has airtime on both of its drops if you sit in the back row, which was honestly very good floater airtime. And it also has really good theming. I was a little nervous from the recent Busch Gardens editions that this ride wasn't going to have good theming, and it does. And it does it really well. It's also very re-rideable because it's very smooth compared to most new B&Ms. This is a ride you definitely shouldn't sleep on your next visit to Busch Gardens. At the number 9 spot, we have Verbolten at Busch Gardens. This has always been a great family coaster, but what Busch Gardens did to this ride was absolutely amazing. I cannot believe SeaWorld redid this ride because the indoor section is 100 times better than what it used to be. It actually has so much good theming, and the queue was even better. And combining it all with an underrated Zero Force launch roller coaster, it is such a great family roller coaster. Obviously, some people will say that it's a bit more intense for a family roller coaster, and that is kind of true. I think it's kind of like borderline, but I still think like families will enjoy this because this is such a great roller coaster. And Busch Gardens knocked it out of the ballpark. At the number 8 spot, we're staying at Busch Gardens for Tempesto. Even though this ride is cloned, it is still a very fun roller coaster. The launch is very punchy, and the forwards and backwards moment is very intense. I also love the Heartline roll at the top. Now, if I'm going to be honest, I didn't really mind the comfort collars when Busch Gardens had them, but now they've actually gotten ahead and gotten rid of them, which is pretty nice. And overall, this is just a really fun roller coaster. It also really pops in Busch Gardens Skyline, which is really nice. And I really do like Tempesto. It's very fun. At the number 7 spot, we have Griffon at Busch Gardens. Griffon was the second dive coaster to open in the United States, and it's a pretty fun one. It has a really good drop, and I think, in my opinion, the best drop in the entire park, even better than Apollo's Chariot. And the ride that follows is still pretty good. The Implement gives a lot of hang time, which makes it really fun, and the second drop is almost just as powerful as the other Implement. And then it also has the splash effect, which is really cool. I think this ride is very picturesque and very scenic. I really do like it. It does also kind of use terrain towards the second drop, and it is a really fun ride. It may be short, but it's a sweet ride. At the number 6 spot, we have Dominator at King's Dominion. This is a very iconic roller coaster, King's Dominion. It was originally operated at Geauga Lake in Ohio. And this ride has a very good layout for a floorless roller coaster. I feel like every element hits, and it's very intense, and I really like it. Even though this ride isn't themed, it still looks really good in the park. It has a nice presence, and that's what I feel like the old Cedar Fair was really good at, making rides that aren't themed look good. And I really do like this roller coaster. I'm glad they were able to save it and give it to King's Dominion, because it fits perfectly in King's Dominion's lineup. The finale may be a little rattly from when I wrote it, but other than that, it is still a really fun roller coaster. Alright, we're going to start off the top 5. At the number 5 spot, we have Apollo's Chariot back at Busch Gardens. The original B&M Hypercoaster, it opened back in 1999 before the new millennium, and is still a very fun ride. It uses the terrain well, so even though it only goes up around 180 feet, its drop is larger than 200 feet, so it is a hypercoaster. It does have some fun airtime moments, and is very picturesque. When you're driving up to Busch Gardens, you will see this roller coaster and really gets you excited for the day. I think this roller coaster is very re-rideable, because not only is it really fun, but it also is very smooth. Now, it does have one drop that definitely will take you by surprise. It's right before the brake run, where you kind of have a not very steep incline, and then you just have a sudden drop, which I think it is one of the best parts of this ride, and I really do like it. I think Apollo Chariot is a great hypercoaster. It's not my favorite B&M Hyper, but it is still a really fun ride. Alright, at the number 4 spot, we have Rapterra at King's Dominion. Rapterra replaced Volcano de Blast roller coaster, and it opened in 2025. It is honestly a really fun roller coaster. I really do like the launch. It's very punchy, and it was my first wing coaster, and I thought it was really good. Plus, I think it looks really cool in the area, and King's Dominion did have a decent amount of theming, although I kind of wish the station looked a little better. It's still not terrible, and I think it was a great ride. The inversions are very fun. It doesn't really have too much airtime, even though there's a Himmelback, which is probably because it has the V&M vest, but other than that, it really is a fun ride, and it's a great addition to King's Dominion. It definitely adds to the lineup, and I really liked it. Sure, it's not the best roller coaster here, but it's still really fun. Alright, now we're going to start our top 3. And all of these roller coasters, I would consider elite roller coasters. These roller coasters are awesome. And starting up at the number 3 spot, we have Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. I used to think this ride was very overrated, but when I got to ride it back in July of 2025, my opinion honestly changed. This is basically Steel Vengeance's second half with a few extra elements. The drop might just be one of my favorite in the state. It is so good, and every single airtime hill hits. It is actually crazy, and I can't believe I used to think this ride was overrated, because it is awesome. It really is one of the best roller coasters here in the state, and I'm glad that we have an RMC here. And this is kind of like Maverick in the way where the stats don't really matter. Because even though it's only around 100 feet tall, it still delivers a punch. And each inversion is just crazy. Like, the fact that they're so low to the ground is just honestly awesome. And I love Twisted Timbers. It is such a great ride, and I really do hope I get to ride it soon. All right, at the number 2 spot, we have Pantheon at Busch Gardens. Pantheon was almost a perfect addition to Busch Gardens. Prior to this, most of the roller coasters were great, but not stand out. Pantheon was that standout attraction Busch Gardens needed, and this ride is just so good. It has so much airtime, and the forward and backwards launch section, the swing launch, is one of my favorite elements of the entire ride. I feel like every element does hit, though. The first inversion is very good, and you get an insane amount of airtime on that little hill in the swing launch. It is crazy. I'm glad it wasn't just a straight section. And the ride doesn't just end there. The top hat's also amazing, and the Outer Bank turn is fantastic. And then we have the 0G stall, which is just awesome. This ride is so good, and it is one of my favorite layouts. Now, one main issue with this ride is that it doesn't have enough theming. I wish it was more themed, and I wish the ride station would look like the actual Pantheon in real life. But it is still a great roller coaster. However, it's not the best roller coaster in Virginia. And the best roller coaster in Virginia, the number 1 spot, and also my personal favorite roller coaster, is Pantherian at King's Dominion. Wow, this ride is insane. It might just be the most intense roller coaster in the entire world. And it is crazy. The drop gives some of the best airtime in the entire world. And then you have a really intense turn that pulls a lot of forces right after the amazing drop. And then you go into a giant hill that also gives a lot of airtime. It's so fast, and it's so good. It is my favorite all-time roller coaster, and my channel is actually named after this ride. 305 Coasters. The 305 comes from its original name, Intimidator 305. I have actually ridden this ride in every single version, and I can confidently say that this is the best version of this ride. Even though the ride experience is pretty much the same, the color scheme just really pops, and it looks beautiful, and it finally blends in with its land. I really like Pantherian because it is my favorite roller coaster, and it is the best in the state, and I'm so glad Virginia has a Giga Coaster. It is also crazy to think that Virginia has a Giga Coaster, but not California. Anyways, let me know your opinions on the Virginia roller coasters and which one is your favorite. And a quick announcement, but I also do have a Patreon page, so if you really want to support my channel, then please head over to it. It is located in the description of my channel. Thanks for watching.